So welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to Byte Action. Nice to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thanks for taking the time. Looking forward to learning more about you, and your background and your experience. First of all, how's your summer?
It's been good. I gained 5 kilos, so
Yeah.
at least you
That's
drop them for next summer.
that's evidence of good summer.
Yeah. It's just been a lot of traveling and good weather, so it's been fine.
Nice. Where did you go? Did you go anywhere nice?
I went a bit. I went a week to France.
Okay.
So not anything.
Did you
crazy.
do any festivals, any conferences, anything like that?
Yeah, loads. Gamescom, of course.
Mm-hmm.
What else did I do? I don't know, because I tend to forget, but I feel like every month there's been something I had to travel to. So yeah, most of the travels has been conference stuff, TDC, stuff like that.
Nice, exciting. Cool. So look, first of all, I'm curious to find out more about your background. So obviously I'm aware of what you do. I went on your LinkedIn, but maybe tell me, where did it all start? Where did the passion for gaming industry, for the video games start? And, what's your background in general?
So, I don't know where to start. I got very, very interested in technology at a very early age. I've been like such a nerd for technology. I think since I was around 6 years old, I started being interested in technology. And when I was 6, because I'm a bit old, it was not like crazy technology. It was kind of the first console I had was like some Texas Instrument with some cartridges that went in. And I remember one of those cartridges was something where you could program, you could put in some commands. I don't remember the language because I was so young, but I just remember it was kind of fascinating to me that not only could you play games, but you could also these games were made by somebody. So that was kind of my initial interest for technology. And then that just continued. I got my first PC, and I love to game, but the reason I think I stuck so much with it and how it was, I was so burned into my brain, was like I love to kind of take it apart and find out how it worked. And in the old days, there was no Windows, there was DOS. You have to do a lot of manual commands. So I kind of got an early understanding of how all the things worked in the back end. When Windows came, it was a program on top of the computer until it became kind of its own OS controlling the computer. So yeah, I just been part of that and just always been fascinating. And so I was an engineer by heart.
Mm-hmm.
We're really just loving to learn, loving to understand what went on behind the scenes. And my first job was actually just a simple backend engineer. Like I did backends for websites.
Okay.
And at that point, I didn't care so much about what I was working on, but more that I was learning, and I loved to be, a programmer and just learn. And there are so many things in programming that is just amazing. And then when I got the option, I actually started earning really good money in that space. But then some friends came to me and said there was this game company that were looking for people, and this was around 2003. And even though I was losing a massive amount of my salary and everything, I just didn't care. I just saw the opportunity for learning more and also getting into games, because I like programming, but I really thought that games had the ultimate challenges for any programmer. So yeah, I just jumped almost without thinking to that company. We made some RTS games.
Nice. What was the name of the company?
Media Mobsters.
Mm-hmm.
Please don't look it up. It's horrible games. No, it's not horrible games, but it's yeah. Media Mobsters was the game. It was the company. I can't remember. The Gangland was the first game, I think. But it was really my learning into games. I started also doing gameplay, and I really, really fell in love with how you can, as a programmer, do a certain experience in a certain way that is interpreted different depending on the user. So you make something once, and then 10 people can play it, and you in the beginning, fail a lot, half understand it, half doesn't, and so on. But I really got fascinated about you creating that experience that can be pre-interpreted, and you can go in and optimize that, and then have the experience to be different. So that was kind of where I learned, like that it's fun to create some kind of entertainment for people. Then this company, it was horrible in the sense that we had crunch from when I started to when I stopped it. From 2003 to start 2006, I guess it was, or end 5, it was just one big crunch period. I met in 10 in the morning and I left maybe 10, 11 in the evening, and that was kind of like that was really
Wow.
detrimental to my kind of my
And
mental health.
was that Saturdays and Sundays as well? Or?
Yeah, everything.
Wow.
It was just, it was, it was so unplanned. It was like none there had made games before. Even like the people who had the idea, nobody. So it was, but it was kind of also I don't know, they might say like fire baptism. Like it's just like, you just get thrown in, and it's, everything is just to shit, and you work hard and you change direction, and then you work hard another direction, and it's, and then, when the games came out, I remember getting, a bonus for the games coming out. They didn't do so well, but there was some bonus thing, and then I think the bonus was like after tax $1,000 or something, and I thought, shit, I really used, so much time of my life for that money, and then I decided to leave the game industry because I thought this is bullshit. There's too much crunch, too much work, and too little gain.
Yeah.
And then I went back to being a consultant for like website companies because I thought, there like I have a lot of good connections. I knew I wouldn't do that forever because at that point I thought I will do this until I find out, I need to make a product. I need to do a product again. I need to do something that is not a consultancy job. I don't think, for me at least, consulting is, you earn per hour, so you can only gain for the hours you have in the day. You cannot get more out of it. And again, I also, as I said, with going into the first game companies, I had gotten this high of delivering this emotion and experiences to players, and seeing people play stuff I've made. I really found that really kind of strong. Yeah, and then I actually just by accident met Arndt, my partner. He had made some of the drawings and videos that was to become Limbo.
How did you guys meet? What was your first encounter?
It was a bit random. It was one of my friends that knew I wanted to get back into games that said I should contact this guy. And Arndt had posted some of these pictures on a forum. So I got contacted him. I wrote an email, say, hey, I have this credentials. I think I had more self-confidence than credentials at that point, but I had a lot of self-confidence, really a lot. So that was good. And I think what Arndt lacked at that point, or maybe still, I don't know, but he's never been the person executing. And I never seen him as a person with great self-confidence. So I kind of was delivering that. And I think that made us become a really good partnership. Because I just immediately just looked at what we could do to make this happen. And we started with nothing. We literally had, I saved up some money and I put that into the company. He put some money in. We just started talking to publishers, not knowing what a publisher deal was or what it consists of or anything. But that was like, that was all about learning. It's about learning what is it like, and that was kind of what I also said to him. Like, I don't care that there's all of these unknowns. The only way to uncover those is to kind of just hammer in, go, like, learn.
What year was that? When did you guys meet, and what was the sort of the beginnings of the company?
So we met in 2006, the ending, middle to ending. I can't remember exactly what month. And, we were just meeting in his apartment. We were meeting out in the city. We were kind of just talking and talking and talking. And then around end of the year, I said to him, okay, if you want, I can go full time on this. I am doing my own consultancy, but that's actually not what I want. I want to do a product. This is a product. And he said, yes, like let's go together and do this. So around January, it must have been January 2007. That was when we got our first office, and that was kind of where I think we started going full time a bit before that, but January was when we had our first office, and we sat down. We picked up tables. There was one table at the beginning because the office was so small, and we just sat across each other, and then was just every day just thinking about how do we make this happen? What is And it's so weird because we knew nothing at that time. Nothing. There was just an idea and a vision, but it was even knowing how publishers work, even knowing how investors work, even knowing how we're going to hire, setting up a company, all of it was something we had to discover. I set up a company before, so the technicalities was not new, but more like how everything from
how to create this game company and how to make it a success. But obviously you had some experience with making games, right? So you did some gameplay programming from the previous company that you could burn out of, and I presume
but
his
the fun
background
thing
was
is,
in art, right?
Yeah, the fun thing is I thought I was going to program, and I started a bit programming and so on, but I quickly realized that this is a much bigger project than I can handle. I mean, we need to hire people. So we quickly started looking for other options to how do we actually, I mean, it's something I also have still problems or think about in my current life, is that it's so hard to be the person starting a company and driving everything, and still being the person producing stuff, because there's so much to do when you are hiring and talking with investors or talking with publishers, or finding out what is the vision, how do you typecast people, finding the right people to lift the right, there's so many choices to be had any given day. You don't come in and somebody says to you, oh, you have to do this today. You come in and you're thinking about, what can I do today to make this come to the next step? And there's no solution. I don't think there was any, like, of course I was searching, I was looking at books, and I was reading a lot, really trying to learn, but you're in a unique situation, just coming in every day and thinking, what am I working on today that is the most valuable thing for the company? And that's super tough. You have to look inwards all the time, because you can also go down something 1 month and then think, was this really the right thing to use time on? Because we have these things. What is the core, right?
How much time did you guys give yourselves before you said, okay, that's it, we ran out of money and now we need to go and find ourselves some work? Or did you manage to secure money early and kind of continue hiring people and kind of growing from that?
Yeah, I mean, we had a set idea that we have to go full in on this vision. I have a lot of discussions with people, like, can you do work for hire on the side while also doing your original IP? And I think it's really hard. What we did was also hard, but it had it another way. So we put in our own money in the start. I cannot remember how much it was, but it was enough. We didn't pay ourselves real salary, but it was enough that we could hire the first person. And then we actually went out talking with both investors, consultants, and publishers. And we actually ended up, I think it was in the start of 2018, to get an investor. So that was kind of our beginnings. It was not the investor that took us the whole way, but it was at least something that gave us the money to kind of scale up a bit and so on. So that was kind of, I think, our breakthrough at that point. And the cool thing about this investor was that he actually understood gaming, as one of the only ones I've kind of met, and also, like, especially because he was a Danish investor. It was very surprising.
How many doors did you have to knock on before you managed to secure it? And also, what was the first person that you hired?
So I think the first person we hired was a guy called Monty. And it was actually a guy that had been in contact with Arndt before. He was making his own game, and he was making an engine. and actually that was the engine we used for Limbo. So we
Cool.
hired him for him and his engine. And yeah, so that was as a big part of the story.
Cool. And before you found an investor, I mean, how many people did you actually have to meet, and how many conversations in a ballpark?
But it's so hard because we talked to a shit ton of investors, like 30 plus, I would guess, where we actually physically met some of them. So can you say, were we pitching? I don't know, because we actually had almost nothing when we met the publishers. For investors, we didn't meet so much. I can't remember. Maybe this was the second or third one.
Okay.
And that's not to say that but we were, I think, partly lucky at that point. Partly there was a type match with this particular investor. So we were actually lucky to not have to pitch it so much. But I mean, if you also count, all of the talks with investors and so on, with the publishers, of course, we were through a lot of learning before we found this person.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, the learning how to pitch, what to say, what not to say. So yeah, every conversation matters. It's like going through an interview process. If you're looking for a job, right? So the first few interviews you might not do as well, but then you're getting better at it, and eventually you manage to secure something.
Yeah, exactly. And I think in our process, it would be the same as you, kind of talking to a lot of people and understanding what's the exact perfect job for me and who will fit me, and then you in the end up meeting. Okay, this company is the perfect for me. I'm the perfect match. I can deliver something to the company. So when you meet them, everything is just you deliver this, and we need this, and so it was kind of that, a lot of learning before we met this person. But also the cool thing about this person is he understood the game. He could see we had something. I mean, it was really, really hard to pitch at that point to investors, because especially Danish investors, they didn't know anything about gaming. So kind of convincing them that this was a good game and they would be popular was really, really tough. And this person just understood the game.
So what was the first vision behind the game? And did you manage to execute that vision with it eventually? Did you have to pivot at some point? And did you have to kind of come up with new ideas, or?
So I mean, as I said, aren't late the founding idea, but I think all games, or at least games of this type, are a start with a vision, and then you just go for that. And you never, I mean, a vision is not a design document that is, complete. A vision is just a thought of a feeling and a visual appearance you want to have for the final product, and then you just go towards it. And I think that was what this was. And we just, did iterative steps toward that vision. Often we went back and looked at Arndt's original video. There was just a video, there was no game there. And look, what was the feeling around this, and how do we achieve that? How do we get that into the gameplay? And then another thing is also, I think what Limbo is it's also going against the trends, because what you saw at that point with other games was there was more colors, more explosions, more music, everything just became louder. And in many ways, we went against the stream of that. We made something completely different. I truly believe that gameplay is the core of what a game is. I mean, I get super frustrated when, there's ultra realistic games and people get fascinated. And I also get fascinated about the graphics, but I also always think, it's not about that. It can be super realistic. If the gameplay is not fun, it's not fun. Good games are good gameplay. And a lot of times, yeah. So I think that was also what was proven with Limbo, that you don't need, amazing 3D realistic graphics to do some an amazing experience.
And also that game turned out to be very original. I mean, your art direction and the gameplay itself, the sound, everything kind of put together, just not something that people, played before or, expected to play. So,
but we also looked very little at other games to make it. It was very much a pure vision. Yeah.
how long did it take to make? And at what point did you think like, wow, this is actually turning out to be an amazing product? Like we're really, really excited. We think it's gonna, we're gonna make it work.
So from our first office until it released, so our first office is when we actually started, I would say, using real full-time on it. Maybe as a month or two before, but from that point of time is where we just had full-time focus. That was 4.5 years until release.
Well,
so
takes a while to make games, right?
Yeah, but also, as I said, we didn't look so much at other games. I was always trying to find our own path. And for your second question, I believed we had something from the very get-go. I could feel it. I mean, I could feel that we had something, because every time we showed it to people, they were excited. Every time we did play testing, they were excited. And I also think that I was very excited about working on something that was going against everything. I knew that when we released it, it would be something completely different. Obviously, you don't know if it's a commercial success. I mean, you never know if going fully against the stream will be the thing that people buys, but I knew it was going to be a great game. And that was kind of also the most important for me. What it earned at that point was not really important. I mean, I think when we started, we didn't even think about the company and the future. It was more like, this needs to get out.
And did you have some kind of a strategy behind the launch, as in to make it a commercial success? Or did you just solely focus on making it like a good product?
Yeah, but I think we just did sensible things. I don't mean you cannot copy that what we did from now, but we just did sensible things. As I said, we just looked down at the vision and didn't look so much up for like what other games did. But I think we also looked up to see what was happening in the industry. We were discussing a lot, what platforms, is it PC, is it Xbox? And then, we saw the first Summer of Arcade. And that made us think, oh, this Summer of Arcade is actually something that is really popular, that's focused on that. We actually started in the company, I think it was every Wednesday when there was a new game on Xbox, because there was only one a week. Everybody, was collected around the Xbox to play the new demo that was released. So we were like, this is kind of a great place to launch. So we did that. We did previews, we did reviews, because we knew it was a strong game. So we also thought that good reviews would be a way to get it out. So I think we didn't do anything extraordinary, but it was also like we did a lot of sensible stuff at that point. And I believe that the Summer of Arcade was a good thing for us to launch in. I still, to this day, see the platforms a bit like, if you come out on the mobile, there's millions of launches there every week or whatever. I don't know how much, to be honest, but there's a lot. So if you launch something on mobile, you're not getting seen. If you launch something on PC, there's less launches, so there's a higher likelihood of you getting seen. If you launch on the consoles, it is even less launches, so it's even easier to be kind of discovered. And when we launched, and maybe a bit to this day also, it's like being in the Olympics. If you launch something on the console, you're getting noticed. I mean, reviewers are thinking that because you get approved for this, and there's few launches, you review your game. So at that point, it just made sense for us to make it like that. So we knew, when you come out on Xbox, you get some treatment of being a bit special, because you're not just one of hundreds of thousands launches. And then another thing is, and that's what people also tend to forget, and why the game is different today. The year we launched Limbo, there was 250 releases that year on Steam. So it was a bit easier to be discovered at that point.
Which year was that? When did you guys
2010.
2010.
July. Can't remember what date in July. Last year there was 14,000 releases on Steam.
Crazy.
So yeah, it's the game is different now.
Yeah.
Not to say that it wouldn't also do good today, because I think we did a lot of good things, but it's definitely requires much more to be discovered today and become part of the Steam algorithm.
Was it more difficult to launch the games back in the day, or was it just not as many people doing it, or the platform wasn't as popular as it is now?
It was a tiny bit more difficult. Everything has been more streamlined, but I think it was more the rise of Unity actually.
Mm-hmm.
So before Unity, it was actually really hard to make games. You had to make your own engine.
Sure.
And the reason we did our own engine, or we bought Monty and his engine to develop it for Limbo, was that Unity was only for Mac. It was not for PC, so we could not even use it. It was also I don't know how it was on the consoles at that point. It actually took many years for Unity to become quite good and quite stable. So the rise of Unity definitely made way for indie developers and smaller developers and medium-sized teams to make ideas in games, which is very beautiful because it has the diversity of games have just also been massive. But it also means that of course it's been more difficult for everybody to get the ideas out, and the bar for good ideas is also rising, right? Because of that. So
what was the idea behind the company name, the studio name, Playdead? Was it just in line with the art direction that sort of Limbo took a little bit, or?
Yeah, I mean, we had a lot of names on the board, and I think this was the name that just kind of reflected, yeah, as you said, like what we stood for.
Mm-hmm.
Something that is kind of playful, but also very macabre, and that's what you see in the games. So it kind of fitted very well. And again, we had a board up with a lot of names, and in the end, this was the one that just felt best for everybody.
What happened to the company, by the way? Did it get bought out? Did you?
Yeah, so I sold my shares to Arndt, my partner,
Okay.
and he's continuing to make games.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
And you're focusing on something else currently, right? So you opened a new company a few years ago called Coherence. What did you guys do? Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so if I can tell you the pre-story. So I also made another game company called Jumpship, where we made Somerville. And I love single-player game. I love the emotions you can have. I love the experiences. But I also now, after 3 games, when I have thought so much about, when it's all about the unique gameplay, and it's all that, I just think when I see the patterns of the games, it was kind of the same, a lot of the same, largely the same processes, and it's just super tough to create these type of games. And I think in the end, they also, the enjoyment they create feels so short. I mean, you create something for like Limbo was, as I said, like from we got our first office until we launched 4.5 years, and 6 years for Inside. It was just like it's a massive, it's so long time, and when you launch it, I feel that you launch something amazing and you get amazing feedback for 3 to 6 months, but after that, it dies out. People are seeing their next Netflix series, they're playing their next game, there's a lot of things happening, a lot of games coming out, and it's kind of then you are back and doing your next thing, and I mean, I don't know how long time the next thing Arno's making will take. My guess is 8 to 12 years. And, I just didn't feel that was that was worth for me, like the human sacrifice. So I got a lot into thinking, like, how do you create something that creates the same type of emotions, become a bit something that lasts for a longer time. So I started thinking a lot about multiplayer games. Like, there is one of my favorite multiplayer games is Journey, and it's a very emotional game.
I know that game. Yeah, it was that game company.
That game company,
huh?
exactly. But nobody has done this type of game before. I don't know of another game that has done it since. And the formula is there. And it's such a beautiful thing where you are in a single player story, you get the emotions from a single player story, but it's enhanced by being together with others and helping others and having a good experience. So I kind of got into the idea that the next game I want to make it needs to be some kind of multiplayer game. And not in the classic sense. I want to challenge the medium. I want to do something that is different. And then I started thinking about, like, how do I make this vision big? How do I make everybody? And then, I mean, somehow I got into thinking about like mods. That mods has been the reason and behind most of the biggest game successes right now. I mean, PUBG, huge success. PUBG led to Fortnite, Counter-Strike, Dota. Like, all of these games come from mods because you give a community a tool and you give them really, really easy and cheap ways of testing gameplays with communities. And suddenly, like, the multiplayer idea I had became more like, let's involve all the creative minds of the world and try to give them a platform to create the multiplayer idea. Not by being something where, I don't want to be like, a Fortnite, where we have to start Fortnite and to get into the game, but something more like Unity. Yeah. A multiplayer Unity, right? Something that just makes it extremely easy to make these kind of ideas, to make one solo developer that has an idea, how to help him make an MMO. So that was kind of how the idea came around.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are you talking
was...
about user-generated content? Is that what you mean by that, or?
No, because user-generated content is still like you use the platform, but more like Unity. I mean, if a game is made by Unity, Unity is not what is in front. Unity is what is behind, kind of.
Okay.
User-generated content is more like, you start up Roblox and then you made a game or something, but you still start Roblox. So it is more like a Unity, but very specialized for multiplayer game. So you still use Unity, but if you want to make a multiplayer game, Coherence just makes it extremely easy to make an MMO, start servers. You don't need to think about anything. You kind of just need to think about the idea. That is the idea.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And is it live already? Like, are the people using it? And I mean, have you launched any games with the help of it already? And like, how's it going?
Yeah, I mean, it's launched already. There's a lot of developers using it. There is some games launched already, not many. But there's a lot in pipeline coming out end of this year, start next year. So it's definitely an exciting thing. I mean, it is definitely a longer path than I had imagined when I started. It is multiplayer tech, is deep tech, and that's also why a lot of people have tried to avoid it, I guess. And what we're helping with. But it's definitely something that is slowly, becoming bigger and bigger, and I can see it. We see the developers in the back end, and when they're launching, I guess that's where you would go to see it more out in the wild.
Wow. Very interesting. But I presume. So you mentioned the journey. So and mentioned kind of smaller teams. So I presume your focus is to attract sort of smaller developers or smaller teams that would be able to use sort of this engine to make.
I would say small to medium.
Small to medium.
I think very, very big team are also making their own engine. I think any team that would choose Unity to cut corners and want to make a multiplayer game would also want to use Coherence to cut corners. It is just, it's just replacing. If you look at all multiplayer teams in the world, a large majority of them are all doing the same code. Because there's the same rules, there's two protocols, TCP and UDP. They are all kind of making largely the same 5 architectures and so on. So all of that is just something you don't need to do again and again and again. And most teams, if you're 10 people, they don't want to have like 3 of those to be network engineers. So most of the time they have to do something really simple in the multiplayer space. So yeah, that's where we're trying to combat, to just enable small to medium teams to be able to do this.
So just kind of looking at the beginning of Coherence then. So you left Playdead. You were thinking what to do, or did you already have like an idea of what you wanted to do? And I guess what was the beginnings of starting this company? How did you start? Did you have to raise money? Did you go ahead and kind of start doing things yourself? Did you have to hire people? Like, what was the story, behind the start of this company?
So yeah, as I said, like it was more like a line of thought that made me go to this. But this so and when I do this, I always talk with people about my ideas because I feel that's the best way of me testing it out and finding good people.
Hmm.
And actually, one of the first persons that really understood it, that actually became one of the idea men behind this, was David Helgerson, the founder of Unity. He's a close friend, and we met one year, and I talked with him about this idea, and he actually was thought it was amazing. So we kept meeting, and it was actually me and him that started developing the first documents about
Hmm.
like the business plan. We tried on paper to see, is this something that works. We also asked developers, what is the biggest or what is the biggest hurdles when you make multiplayer games? Why you're not making multiplayer games? And if you are, what is your problem? So that was kind of it. And then I started it with my own money. He also put some money in, and then yeah, it's just maybe as like I mean I got the big driver's license in Playdead, learning how to do these things, how to find talent, how to typecast, and so on. So I feel it was just naturally, I just naturally did whatever I did best. I mean, what I used a lot of time on the Playdead was also finding money.
Right.
Um, I did that too also in Jumpship, and now so I feel I have a pretty good sense of what investors are looking for or publishers are looking for. And yeah, so it's
What are they looking for? So I don't know. Let's say I'm starting my own gaming company, or have an idea for a game. I have a team, maybe a prototype. What sort of things should I tell investors to get myself sort of best chance of raising some money?
but it depends a lot. I mean, first of all, you have to decide if you want to go the publisher
Hmm.
or investor route. It's two very different things. I have I have more experience with investors because I always when I talk to loads of publishers, and I always in the end decided to go with investors because I felt that was where you are mostly aligned as a I mean, they come into the company and they're aligned with the company vision, where publishers come in and have to be aligned with the game vision, but a lot of the times they don't have any long term interest in the company. So a lot of times I felt that didn't work for me. Um, I also think that most publishers has really bad deals. They come and loan you money, but they also want half of your revenue, and for me, that is too steep. Um, there's
Yeah.
very, very little things that are worth them taking half the revenue. They really, really need to do a good job. And the problem is with with publishers, they cannot guarantee them doing a good job. There's nothing they can write in a contract that they're going to do a good job. They can promise you money and they can promise you marketing, but you actually never know what it is in the end. The only way you can know it is if you've done it before with them, or maybe ask others and so on. But again, others might have another game where they did more, and yours they wouldn't. So I think it's first deciding what route, and after that it's just about building your value. It's all about building your value because they don't come and invest in you because you or your personality or because they think it's a great game. They invest in you because they think they can earn money of this. So how do you make the best value? So you, of course, what you show them is something that proves that you have created some value. And the reason I like to use my own money first, again, it's not an option for everybody, but it's an option for me, is that I can when I have a vision, I can sit down and I can develop it in the direction I want, and I can add enough to it that it becomes something that like is a great, well-rounded vision that everybody can see. It's visualized and so on, and well presented. In games, you also want vertical slices or prototypes or something. You do those, and then after that, I feel it's not easy, but I feel that if you have a good prototype, a good vertical slice, you can get money. I mean, that's essentially how it is.
Even nowadays, so do you feel like nowadays it's even more difficult to raise money? I mean, given like the
I
current
mean, I think
state
that
in the industry and stuff.
I think good pitches still get money. I know. I think there's a lot of people pitching now, and there's a lot of projects trying to get money, and not everybody getting money. I feel still the good projects are getting money, or at least some projects are getting money. The people who present their ideas the best. So it is possible. It's not impossible. If you look at what's invested, how much money there's invested in the game industry, I think it's still on the 2018 level. It is not the same as the craze in during Corona. And a lot of things we see now is also a correction of some of the overinvestment that happened in Corona.
In your opinion, what separates the companies that do well, or the studios that do well in the industry, from those that don't? I mean, the ones that make it and the ones that don't make it. Like, what is the key? What is the key to being, I guess, a successful gaming studio?
So I think there's three things. It's I don't know. Am I going through, by the way? Probably.
Say again?
Am I going through? Probably. Sometimes you are a bit.
No, I can.
Okay.
I'm listening.
Okay, perfect. No, sorry, that is the technology. But okay. No, I think there's three things. It is talent.
Mm-hmm.
It is how that talent executes, and then it's how this talent is presenting whatever they're working on. Because you can have really good talent and be bad at executing. You can have good talent and be bad at presenting what you're doing. I don't think you can do great success with just execution or marketing. And if you do, I think it's a fluke. I think like to get sustained success, I think you have to have these three things.
Okay. And is it something that you kind of always look for? Because I know you invested in some companies as well, right? So in addition to obviously having your own business, you also an investor. I mean, are you still active in that space, or like is your focus mostly on building your studio?
Yeah, somewhat. I mean, I am an idiot. I'm involved always in too many things. It's so stupid. So I have invested in some teams. I invested in some VCs, and I also invested in more VCs than I have on my LinkedIn because I just haven't had them up. I think I'm in 6 or 7 different ones. The VCs doesn't require so much from me. They send me sometimes pitches, invite me to the parties and so on. It's really fine, but there's no real work involved in that. The teams I'm looking at, I'm a bit more cautious because sometimes I feel I only look at people that have the talent.
Mm-hmm.
And with talent, it's partly the credentials, but sometimes it's not, what's on your CV. It's also like me talking with a person and understanding if they really were the one driving the things, in the company they were and so on. And then, of course, I try to gauge like the level of execution the teams have, how they're going to execute it. And then lastly, also how they're presenting it. And I actually feel that most people I've talked to is really, really bad, at presenting what they have. And that's sometimes a bit of a problem for me because I either have to kind of try to look behind, like, is this something they can improve? Is it something I can come and help them with? And do I have the time to help them with it? Or is it something I should just skip just because of that, even though there's talent and execution there? And I think for me, a lot of times, the reason I say no is I feel there's talent execution, but they're really bad at their presenting. And I don't know if it's something I want to spend time on myself helping, or if they can get.
Because that's very important, right? Because I guess if you're investing in companies initially, that would be kind of the seed round, right? So the initial round, but then you need to think about the future, right? So what's going to happen when they need to pitch to like big VCs for Series A or other rounds, and they need to be able to present that idea in a good way.
Yeah, and there's a lot of execution involved also. There's so much execution involved in scaling up, finding the right people, and also if they're lacking on communication or like in building the company and so on, how do they get then that person in that can help them? Mm-hmm. And that's quite tough.
just going back to the current state of the industry as well. So with you mentioned correction, so there's obviously a lot of layoffs happening at the moment. Some studios are closing down, others are getting an investment. Where do you see this all heading? Is it something that you came across before, or is this kind of the first of it that you've seen on that scale?
So this is the first time I've seen it. And even though I call it a correction, I of course think it's sad. I mean, it's always sad to scale down. I have the feeling we are on kind of on the bottom of it, and we are slowly living it out for this point. As I said, we are back at 2018 levels. During Corona, it was really crazy. It was really, really crazy, and it was too crazy, and everybody thought it was crazy. So I think this was bound to happen. I haven't seen it before. The game industry always said to everybody, it's just industry that's on the way up all the time, and we will get back to being on the way up all the time. I think, and I think that's hopefully. I mean, I don't know, but I think it's from now on. I think the correction has happened.
Yeah,
is my thought.
Guess we need to wait. We need to wait a little bit longer for that. What I also saw as well is that, as you mentioned as well, so there's so many games that are being put on the market, right? And you mentioned when you were launching Playdead, it was 250 new launches every year in Steam. Now it's in 12,000 or whatever it was. But yeah, I feel like there's a lot of games that launch and you invest a lot of money in them, and they don't necessarily get as big of returns as you thought you're gonna get.
Yeah, it's definitely another game now. It's definitely, you cannot just do previews and reviews and count on it. You have to think about communities and so on. It is harder. And I also recently started thinking more about what good publishers do for you and so on.
What should they do in your opinion? If let's say you're a publisher, and if like what are the things? What are the sort of the most important things that you would expect a publisher to do? What should their responsibilities be if they were doing it right?
I mean, if you're the best ones that are out there has been really good at building communities. They built up that people expect a certain time of games to come from them, so they start following them. They've been brave to select a niche or like a certain path, and then they kind of collect people that like this type of games. And there's not a lot of these, like there's so many publishers. I mean, everybody, a few years back, everybody started building publishers. It's crazy. Like everybody has their own publisher. All developers that has developed one or two games also think they're publisher now. Like it's really crazy. But the good ones have kind of selected a niche, like Annapurna has selected a style. So you know what Annapurna game is, and people who like Annapurna games will continue to follow them. Paradox the same. I mean, if you are an RTS game and you launch with Paradox, there are people looking at Paradox games coming out, right? So I think it's the community building that's really important. But you can only build those communities if you have something to build the community around, and you cannot build that out around just launching games, because why should people come for your general games? They can just go on Steam for that. You want to build out communities that know what to expect, so there's some kind of red thread in what you are releasing, so people over time, get used to what comes from you as a publisher.
Sure, makes sense. For those that are starting out in the industry, I don't know, say young people or students looking to build their own game, or people just entering in the industry, what advice would you give to them? Sort of based on your journey as well, maybe, and based on what you're seeing at the moment, with everything that's going on.
So I think you have to think about the uniqueness you bring to the table. What is it you're bringing? Because I think it's fine to be inspired what's out there, but you have to bring something new to the table. I mean, as I said before, like the bar of what a good game is, and like the creativity is just so high at the moment. And the good games that are being found are games that not necessarily reinvent everything, but they reinvent something. They take a known genre and make their own twist on them. And those are, yeah. So I think for sure you have to do that. I see too many people coming in and just redoing what is there. And then, you know, if you don't like, if you come in really new to the industry and just think you need to do the same as is out there, you don't get discovered. I met a team that showed me a game, and they said to me in the end, "Oh, is this not? Isn't it just like Crash Bandicoot?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it is, but I would rather play that." Like, I mean, it is almost like as good as that, but there's nothing like, how do you make a platformer? It was a very mundane platformer. How do you bring something unique to that? How do you make a unique twist on that? And I think if you look at all of the popular games out there, none of them are necessarily fully new, but they all brought something, a new twist to the genre where they are a success in.
Nice. That's a good advice. Be brave enough as well to try and come up with something new and put it out there.
Yeah.
Personally, then for you, like, what's next for you and Coherence? You know, what are the sort of next plans in the next, few years or 6 months? I don't know how far you tend to plan ahead with these things.
There's always a vision that goes far ahead.
Yeah.
I mean, I will see. I mean, hopefully what we try to do now is to make multiplayer games better, and we want to help people make them faster. That is the big vision. But in some ways, all of Coherence is also for me a big side quest, because I still want to make that multiplayer game. I just need Coherence to be successful for me to kind of build that game on Coherence. So yeah, I mean, I will not stop building Coherence until it becomes really successful. But it is. I mean, I will admit it is tickling in me to get back and make games again. The challenge is just that the game I want to make actually requires Coherence to work and to kind of run by itself.
Okay, that sounds interesting. I mean, I wish you luck with that. I mean, I hope you're successful, and I hope we can see some new multiplayer games coming from you personally. Maybe just one last question to end this. If you could change one thing in the games industry nowadays, what would it be?
So this is a personal one for me. I think that there's too much focus on money and having success tied to money. And while I think all game studios need to earn money to kind of make more games and to be sustainable, I still feel sometimes, I mean, maybe it's just, as it is my path, and suddenly, you just go around and it's all about the money you can earn with games. And I think for me, games is about gameplay, and games lose a bit of that focus if the focus becomes about how much money it can make. And it is also what has created, a lot of, in my opinion, bad genres. There's really a lot of bad games that are just focused on earning money, and I don't like that. But again, it's a very personal opinion. But too much focus on money.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, yeah. Guess focus on the game first, right? Focus on the vision. Make sure you make good games, and then if you do that, money supposedly should follow anyway. So you don't have to think about that.
Exactly. And you should not optimize for it. You should optimize for a better game, because hopefully a better game is also giving you more success and more players playing it, and enabling you to make more games.
Right. Well, thanks, Dino. Thanks for coming over. It was a pleasure to meet you.
And likewise.
Thank you.